Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. Adaora's hands trembled as she smoothed the front of her simple white wrapper, the sunlight through the church's stained glass windows painting her in rose and gold. She glanced at Tobe's face, handsome in his crisp agbada but unreadable. Behind them, Chioma whispered to Mama Ezen's oldest friend, Barrister Ajiro, she brought nothing, no car, no land, no dowry beyond herself. Laughter rippled through the assembled family. Tobe caught Adaora's eye and offered a quick, embarrassed smile. After the ceremony in the dusty courtyard, Chioma stepped forward. "Sister-in-law," she said with a tight tilt of her head, "I trust your grandmother left you something, a handful of beans at least?" Adaora lowered her gaze. Every night, in her small rented room, she'd slid the sealed envelope from Mama Ezen's will under her pillow. The lawyer's instructions were clear: only reveal when survival demands. At the reception, Tobe's colleagues admired the cake. His uncle admired the bride's quiet grace. Only Chioma and her mother fretted. "Your son married blind," Mrs. Dyke hissed to Tobe's mother. Tobe squeezed Adaora's hand. "Ignore them," he murmured, though his voice wavered. Late that night, in a borrowed guest room, Adaora sat by the window, the city's neon glow flickering. She opened the envelope. The land deeds, property lists, bank statements, her inheritance. A lump rose in her throat. She held a single gold-embossed card from Mama Ezen. "Let them doubt, power sits quietly in the shadows." Adaora closed her eyes, whispered a quiet prayer, then tucked everything back. Tomorrow she'd be the same humble bride, but tonight she felt the weight of unspoken power settle on her shoulders. Morning light streamed onto the veranda as Adaora joined the family breakfast. Tobe's father cleared his throat. "Adaora, you must share the recipe for this stew, so flavorful." Chioma rolled her eyes. "Recipe? We wanted land." Chioma's words floored Adaora. She looked at Tobe. He opened his mouth then shut it. "Come Adaora, join me for a walk," he said softly, leading her away. Out back he kicked at the red earth. "Why won't you tell them what you have?" His voice cracked. She steadied him gently. "Because it's mine to reveal on my own terms." He stared at her. "They think you're a charity case." Adaora traced patterns in the dust. "Let them think. One day they'll know better." Back inside, Mama Ejiro confided in Adaora, "Your grandmother insisted you keep the properties secret until you chose to reveal them." She handed Adaora a folded note. "When the time comes, read this aloud." Adaora nodded. At lunch, Chioma flounced across the table. "Sister, if you truly own anything, prove it. A house tour perhaps." Tobe winced. Adaora's lips curved. "I'd love to, but these days I prefer listening over showing." Chioma's laughter faded into awkward silence. Later, alone with Tobe, Adaora asked, "Do you trust me?" His throat worked. "Yes." She squeezed his hand. "Then you'll see everything when I choose." Within weeks, bills went unpaid. Electricity cut out. The generator sat silent. Tobe's phone rang nonstop. Creditors, business partners, lawyers. He paced the living room. Adaora offered a gentle suggestion. "Perhaps we can use the savings from my grandmother's farmland sales?" He snapped, "You came with nothing, save your ideas." She flinched but kept calm. That night, Tobe tossed and turned. At dawn, he found Adaora poring over her grandmother's ledger. "Tell me again why you brought no dowry," he challenged. Adaora placed her hand on his. "Because my worth isn't in what I show but what I endure and choose to reveal." He softened. "I'm sorry." She smiled wearily. At work, Tobe's partner, Mr. Benson, cornered him. "Need cash?" he asked. Tobe's pride flared. Later, Adaora slipped him her grandmother's ledger and whispered, "Negotiate from knowledge, not ego." He studied the pages. "You really understand these properties?" She nodded. "Better than anyone." That evening, Tobe called Mr. Benson. Adaora watched him pace as he proposed a partnership that could rescue their finances. She laid her head on his shoulder, heart pounding. He kissed her hair. "Thank you, for everything." She closed her eyes, the envelope heavy under her pillow, waiting. A slick newcomer, Mr. Obesai, swaggered into Tobe's modest office. He promised triple-digit returns. Tobe beamed. Adaora shadowed him into the meeting room. Obesai's grin gleamed. He slid glossy brochures across the table. "Sign here," he purred. Tobe looked to Adaora. "Your input." She studied the fine print. "This says you lose control if—" Obesai waved her off. "Just trust me." Tobe hesitated, then signed. Weeks later, the money vanished, the office lights dimmed. Tobe slammed his fist into the door. Adaora approached quietly. "You don't need him," she said softly. Tears filled his eyes. "I failed you." She cupped his face. "You didn't fail me, I let you lead alone. Next time we decide together." She retrieved her grandmother's ledger again, voice firm. "Let's invest wisely." Tobe nodded, gratitude in his eyes. Adaora realized the time had come to draw from her inheritance, and prove in silence that wealth isn't what you bring, but what you build together. Flashback to Mama Ezin's simple compound under a tamarind tree. Young Adaora knelt before her grandmother's wrinkled hands. "Promise me, child," Mama Ezin said, voice steady, "you'll let the world underestimate you. When it's time, reveal your power calmly, in your own moment." Adaora pressed her thumbprint on the last page of the will. Present day, Adaora sat in the legal office opposite Barrister Ejiro. Sunlight glinted off the framed deed list on his desk. 7 buildings, 5 farmlands, 3 estates, he intoned, all held in trust until you decide otherwise. She exhaled. "My grandmother knew the value of silence." He smiled. "And you've honored it." Walking home, Adaora imagined each property bustling with life. Tenants laughing, children playing, fields yielding crops. She reached into her bag and withdrew the sealed note from Chapter 2. Inside, Mama Ezin's words, "Reveal the deeds only once hearts and minds are ready to respect you." Adaora folded the note, tucking it into her blouse pocket. Ahead lay Tobe's worried face, and the chance to reshape her destiny, quietly but irrevocably. The invitation to Chioma's charity gala arrived on glossy paper, an opportunity Tobe seized to prove Adaora wrong. He escorted Adaora into the grand hall, chandeliers spilling light onto designer gowns. Chioma draped herself over Tobe's arm and murmured loudly, "Let's see what our quiet bride contributes." Adaora offered a warm smile to the guests but felt the sting of every eye on her plain wrapper. At the front, the MC announced donors one by one. Chioma's name flashed on the screen alongside luxury brand logos. Adaora's heart pounded as the announcer paused, searching the list. And next, his voice trailed. A hush fell. Chioma leaned close. "See? Nothing." Tobe's lips tightened. But Adaora held her ground, until the MC's breath caught. "Surprise donation," he said, from Adaora Ease, 5 million naira toward the women's shelter. Shock rippled through the crowd. Chioma's mouth fell open. Tobe's eyes widened. Adaora stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "My grandmother taught me that giving changes lives more than owning." Cameras swiveled, whispers erupted. Later, backstage, Chioma confronted her. "How dare you humiliate me?" Tears of anger and embarrassment streaked her cheeks. Adaora put a hand on her shoulder. "I didn't set out to embarrass you, I just kept my promise to help." Tobe pulled Adaora aside. "I'm sorry I ever doubted you." She smiled through relief. "Let's leave the past behind." Tobe returned home that night to an empty house. Adaora had moved her things to the small flat next door, one of the properties from her inheritance. He found her unpacking in a modest bedroom, stacks of boxes labeled Shelter Project and Family Archives. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice trembling. Adaora paused. "I needed to live truthfully even if it hurt." He sank onto the bed. "I feel lost without you." She sat beside him. "I never wanted to hurt you, I only needed space to breathe." He nodded. Space and honesty. They sat in silence as the evening breeze drifted through the open window. Over the next week, Tobe tried to bridge the gap. He brought breakfast trays, she accepted coffee but kept her distance. In the evenings, he studied the ledger of properties and deeds she left on the table. He realized she'd quietly ensured his mother's rent was paid, her sister's tuition covered, acts he never saw until now. On the 7th day, Adaora found him at the threshold, tears in his eyes. "I'm ready to come home," he whispered. She opened her arms. "Then let's build together, no secrets." Tobe nodded. No more shadows. And for the first time they walked back to their home as equals. Tobe's company collapsed overnight. Investors withdrew, suppliers halted deliveries. He paced the now empty office, head in his hands. Adaora arrived with folders of his grandmother's farmland appraisal reports. "Use this as collateral," she said gently. "Don't face this alone." He hesitated. "I'm the man of the house." She met his gaze. "A partnership means sharing burdens." With her guidance, he renegotiated debts, offering partial ownership of some estates. Barrister Ejiro drafted new agreements. Creditors sighed in relief. Slowly, shipments resumed, clients returned. One afternoon, Mr. Benson visited. "I heard what happened," he said, extending a hand to Tobe. "Adaora's insight saved you." Tobe bowed his head. "I owe her everything." Adaora smiled. "We owe each other honesty." The three stood beneath the open sky, a new alliance forged from ruin. Later, Tobe and Adaora walked the empty warehouse their company once occupied. He slipped his arm around her. "I almost lost everything for pride." She leaned on his shoulder. "You found something more valuable, trust." They watched cranes shift containers, a metaphor for rebuilding lives, and rebuilding together. As news of Adaora's generosity and acumen spread, invitations poured in. One came from a national housing coalition seeking experts to revitalize informal settlements. At the meeting, ambassadors and NGO directors filled the boardroom. Adaora presented a plan: convert unused farmlands into affordable housing, fund microloans with rental proceeds, and partner with local artisans. Afterward, Mr. Benson tapped his pen. "We need your vision on our team." He slid a contract across the table. Adaora read the terms. Lead consultant, equity stake, autonomy. She glanced at Tobe sitting beside her, pride shining in his eyes. "I accept," she said, voice steady. Back at home, she found Tobe celebrating with Chioma over dinner. "To Adaora," they toasted. He raised his glass. "To the woman who taught me that true wealth is shared." Adaora joined them, laughter filling the room. She realized her inheritance's greatest gift wasn't the land, but the chance to transform communities, and transform hearts. Rumors of Adaora's success reached distant relatives. Cousins she barely remembered called, seeking loans. Neighbors showed up unannounced. Tobe greeted them with polite firmness. Adaora listened behind him, arms crossed. When Chioma appeared with tearful apologies, Adaora invited her in but set clear terms. "If you need help, let's draft an agreement." Chioma nodded, humbled. A week later, the extended family gathered on one of Adaora's farm plots turned resource center. She handed out keys to small homes, microloan packets, and scholarship certificates. Tobe introduced her. "This is Adaora E's, wife, partner, and visionary leader." Applause thundered. That night, as they locked the gates, Tobe slipped his arm around Adaora's waist. "They came for your generosity, but stayed for your integrity." She rested her head on his chest. "I never wanted power, I just wanted purpose." He kissed her forehead. "And purpose brought you power." Outside, the stars blinked over the compound. Adaora smiled, thinking of Mama Ezen's words, "Power sits quietly in the shadows." Now her power stood in the light, and invited everyone to step forward. Tobe stepped into the cramped office of the Ikoyi Land Registry, the midday heat pushing sweat to his brow. He carried a slim file folder cradled in his arms, filled with documents he believed would secure his family's future. As he neared the counter, he spotted a curt sign, "Titles and transfers only." He placed his folder before Mrs. Okoye, the registrar, who peered through half-moon spectacles at his papers. "These documents are for Plot 27 on Onitsha Road," Tobe said, exhaling. "I am here to finalize the sale." Mrs. Okoye adjusted her glasses and methodically flipped through her ledgers. She tapped a line on her screen, eyebrows lifting. "I'm sorry, sir, but this plot is registered in the name of Ms. Adaora E's. There is no record under your name." Her tone was polite but firm. A tremor ran through Tobe's chest. He forced a calm veneer. "That must be a mistake. My name is Tobe Chukwuma. I purchased the land 6 months ago." Mrs. Okoye shook her head. "No transaction is logged under Mr. Chukwuma. Ms. Isa's signature appears on every page." Tobe's hands clenched the folder so tightly his knuckles whitened. He stepped aside, heart pounding. Outside, the registry overflowed with people whispering and turning to watch him. Shame seared his cheeks as he realized he had been kept in the dark. Minutes later, his phone buzzed. He answered with a trembling voice. "Adaora? It's urgent." Adaora's calm reply came through the line. "I thought you might end up here." She walked into the office moments later, elegant and composed in her modest wrapper. Tobe lowered his gaze as she approached Mrs. Okoye and presented her own credentials. The registrar reviewed Adaora's documents and smiled. "Everything is in order, Ms. Ease." Tobe watched Adaora retrieve the plot's deed from her folder, fingers steady. She turned to him, voice soft but resolute. "You said you wanted to sell it? Here is the deed. Anything else you need?" He could barely speak. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally whispered. Adaora folded the deed and placed it on the counter. "You never asked," she said quietly. You assumed I had nothing. Her eyes glistened with wounded pride. I wanted you to know me before my wealth. I wanted us to be partners in truth. Tob swallowed hard, regret flooding him. He reached out and took her hand. I'm so sorry, Adaora. I judged you by appearances. She studied his gaze, measuring his sincerity. I forgive you, she replied, but respect must follow. Trust must be earned. Tob nodded, tears in his eyes. As they walked out of the registry, the sun felt different, brighter, forgiving. Adaora slipped her hand into his, guiding him back toward a shared future built on honesty and quiet strength. He paused on the threshold, heart full of awe. Adaora's quiet power eclipsed every material possession. In that moment he understood that true wealth was grounded in character, not contracts. Late in the afternoon, Adaora returned from overseeing the final touches at the shelter project. She stepped into her small office, where binders and blueprints lay stacked on a worn wooden table. Unzipping her bag, she set down her keys alongside a neatly folded cash collection report and a tablet showing community feedback. She paused, breathing in the quiet. Tonight she had planned to brief the community leaders on the next funding phase. Before she could organize her notes, the door opened softly. Barrister Ejiro entered, briefcase in hand and measured expression on his face. Good evening, Ms. Ease, he said kindly. Adaora rose and offered the leather guest chair. Good evening, Barrister. I wasn't expecting you, she confessed. He placed his briefcase on the desk. I have important documents from your grandmother's estate. Ejiro opened the briefcase and withdrew a thick envelope sealed with crimson wax bearing Mama Ezen's family crest. Adaora's heart beat faster. Read this when you are ready, he said. With trembling fingers she broke the seal and unfolded the letter. Her grandmother's flowing handwriting greeted her. My dearest Adaora, when you feel uncertain, remember that true leadership is shown by deeds, not declarations. Reveal your strengths through compassion and quiet determination. Let your actions speak where words fail. Your inheritance is a legacy of hope. Use it wisely. When Adaora looked up, Ejiro produced a second folder. Here are the complete deeds and title documents. 7 residential buildings across Lagos Island, 5 farms in Enugu State, and 3 undeveloped estates near Abuja. Each title is registered irrevocably in your name. He tapped the folder. You are now one of the region's largest private landowners. Adaora nodded, absorbing the weight of responsibility settling in her chest. She turned to the framed photograph of Mama Ezen on the shelf, a gentle face etched with wisdom, and whispered, I will honor your trust. Memories flooded back. Evenings by the fireplace, life lessons on humility, the pact to protect her inheritance until the world was ready. She carefully folded the letter and placed both it and the folder in her locked drawer. A quiet determination settled over her. She glanced at the community blueprint beside her desk and allowed herself a small smile. Tomorrow, she said softly, I will meet with my team and outline our next phase, an educational program for young women in property management and community development. Barrister Ejiro smiled approvingly. Your grandmother would be proud, he said. He closed his briefcase. I look forward to supporting you as you lead. After he departed, Adaora exhaled deeply. Outside, the city lights of Lagos shimmered like constellations of possibility. She gathered her notes, her grandmother's letter, and the deeds, feeling both humbled and empowered. The lawyer's letter was more than a document, it was truly a charge to uplift others, to build silently, and to transform wealth into purpose. She switched off the desk lamp, ready to embrace tomorrow's dawn with renewed purpose. Within days of the land registry revelation, social media exploded with headlines about Adaora's inheritance. At dawn, her phone buzzed with notifications, quiet bride to tycoon, trending across the nation, YouTube videos dissecting her story, tweets praising her humility, forum posts debating her motives. Comments came from across Africa and beyond. Adaora scrolled through one post that read, She carried no dowry but holds 7 Lagos buildings, priceless patience. Another comment, True grace lives in the shadows, only revealed in action. Meanwhile, television crews arrived at her office. Cameras and lights transformed her reception area into a makeshift studio. A reporter introduced her live. We're here with Adaora Ease, whose quiet march to ownership has inspired millions. Adaora sat for the interview, poised in a simple wrapper, her voice calm as she explained, I never sought attention. My goal has always been to serve. When the time was right, I honored my grandmother's wishes and used this platform to uplift my community. At home, Tob watched the broadcast from the living room couch, remote in hand. He turned to Chioma, who hovered nearby. I never realized what she carried, he whispered. Chioma swallowed. I'm ashamed, she admitted. I mocked her. Tobe nodded. I saw only what I wanted to see. He switched off the TV and went to the garden, where Adaora joined him minutes later. Under the moonlit sky, Tobe gathered her hands. You've changed the narrative of wealth and humility, he said. She touched his cheek. Only because you believed in me. He studied her face. I believe now. Silence settled comfortably, only cicadas sang. By morning, local newspapers ran feature stories. In Lagos Today, The Heiress We Never Knew. In Nation News, Gentle Power, Adaora's Rise. Magazine editors wanted cover exclusives. Messages poured in from civil society leaders inviting her to speak at conferences. Invitations included requests to serve on boards, advise government housing committees, and mentor aspiring entrepreneurs. Adaora responded thoughtfully. She arranged meetings with her team to vet each invitation, seeking alignment with her vision. She declined lucrative speaking fees when causes did not match her mission. Our legacy is measured in impact, she reminded her assistant. The team nodded in respect. Meanwhile, her extended family assembled for a formal gathering at her estate. Tambourine drums echoed through the courtyard as elders danced to welcome her honor. Adaora watched from the veranda, wrapped in gratitude and resolve. She raised a glass of Zobo drink and addressed them. Thank you for celebrating not only my inheritance, but the values it represents: service, humility, and community. Applause thundered. Tobe stood beside her, pride shining in his eyes. As the night drew to a close, Adaora considered how far she had come, from a quiet bride to a transformative leader. She turned to Tobe and whispered, "Our journey has only just begun." He squeezed her hand. In that moment, the public shift felt personal. The world had finally seen her power, and found inspiration in her grace always. That evening, the compound lay silent save for the cicadas' hum. Under the great Irako tree where he first proposed, Tobe stood alone, hands clasped in front of him. The air carried a faint scent of gardenia from the bloom near the veranda. He breathed deeply, recalling the day Adaora accepted his ring, her eyes shimmering with trust. He recalled late nights filled with arguments, the sting of each careless word, and the ache of her tears. Moments later, Adaora emerged from the house, dressed simply in a lavender wrapper. His pulse hammered at the memory of her walk to the flat next door. Her gaze was steady as she approached the foot of the tree. Tobe struggled to steady his voice. "Adaora," he began, fingers trembling, "I have carried guilt in my heart these past weeks." Adaora watched him silently, arms folded. The moonlight filtered through leaves, casting dancing shadows on their faces. Tobe continued, "I judged you without seeing your strength. I mocked your silence." His voice broke. "I was blinded by pride and fear. I built walls where there should have been openness." He knelt unbidden, pressing his forehead to the bark. Adaora's breath caught at the sight. He was vulnerable for the first time. Tobe lifted his head slowly. "I beg your forgiveness," he whispered. "Not to erase the past but to build our future on honesty. Will you grant me a second chance?" Tears shimmered in Adaora's eyes as she stepped closer. The memories of pain lingered, a wedding reception filled with jeers, nights of silent resentment, but empathy overrode hurt. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Your words matter more than pride," she said softly. Her touch was warm, a balm to the wounds he had inflicted. "I forgive you." A fragile hope bloomed between them. Tobe rose, brushing dust from his knees. He bowed slightly. "I promise to share my burdens and my joys without reservation." Adaora nodded. Her voice was quiet but firm. "We will rebuild together, no secrets, no shadows." They sat on the moss-covered roots as a warm breeze brushed their faces. Tobe reached for her hand. "What do you need from me now?" he asked. Adaora closed her eyes, weighing her answer. "Trust my vision and speak honestly when you doubt me," she replied. A renewed union felt like the first page of a new chapter. They spoke late into the night, mapping plans for the community library, women's mentorship scheme, and debt relief initiative. Laughter wove between them as old fears dissolved. The Irako tree bore silent witness to their renewal, a man humbled, a woman empowered, and a partnership reborn. When the first hints of dawn painted the sky, Tobe enveloped Adaora in an embrace. "Thank you for this chance," he murmured. She rested her head on his chest. "Thank you for your humility." As the sun rose, their shadows stretched long across the courtyard, two silhouettes intertwined by forgiveness, respect, and shared purpose. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the compound as Adaora prepared to inaugurate the women's housing project. 10 painted homes lined the newly paved courtyard, each door adorned with a brass plaque and a name the recipient chose. Mothers, widows, and young graduates filed in, voices hushed with anticipation and gratitude. Adaora stood on the assembly stage, a podium draped in white linen. Tobe stood beside her, beaming with pride. Mama Ezen's framed portrait rested on an easel at her left, flowers arranged at its base. The community leaders gathered at the front row, civil servants, NGO representatives, and faith leaders, while media crews stood at the back, cameras poised. She adjusted the microphone and cleared her throat. "Thank you everyone for being here today," she began, voice steady. "This project is more than bricks and mortar. It is a promise kept to my grandmother and to every woman who will call these houses home." She glanced at the rows of smiling faces. "I was once told I brought nothing to my marriage. Today I bring this, a commitment to uplift others." Applause rang out. Chioma wiped tears in the front row. Tobe reached for Adaora's hand, squeezing it. "We dreamed of affordable, dignified housing," Adaora continued. "Now it stands ready for you. I invite each of you to claim your key to build new beginnings." She gestured to an assistant who passed out keys tied with green ribbon. As recipients approached to receive their keys, Adaora moved among them, greeting each by name. She knelt to speak to a young woman named Ifyananya, recently widowed with 2 children. "Use this house to heal," she whispered. Ifyananya's eyes glistened. "You have given me hope," she said. Later, as the ceremony wound down, a reporter approached for an interview. "Ms. Ease, how does it feel to transform your inheritance into opportunity?" Adaora paused thoughtfully. "It feels like answering a calling," she replied. "We all have something to give: time, resources, love. When we share what we have, we build stronger communities." After the questions, Tobe wrapped an arm around her waist. "You are incredible," he murmured. She leaned in. "Together we are unstoppable," she said. By midday, viral videos of the ceremony had circulated online. Viewers across the country applauded her vision. Comments hailed her as a queen of compassion and the people's heiress. Local officials sent commendation letters, and a national award nomination arrived for Urban Development Leader of the Year. As guests departed with chatter, Adaora walked through the empty courtyard. She paused by the last house, fingertips brushing the doorframe. She imagined families growing here. Laughter in the corridors, meals shared in kitchens, futures shaped within these walls. She looked toward the horizon where Mama Ezen's portrait still stood. A tear of fulfillment glistened in her eye. "We did this for you, Grandma," she whispered, her voice carried on the warm breeze. "We honor your legacy, and we build on it, every single day." Tobe braced himself at the courthouse entrance, the divorce petition burning a hole in his jacket pocket. He navigated the echoing marble hall to courtroom 14, heart pounding with regret. He signed in at the clerk's desk, nodded curtly to the bailiff and stepped inside. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, glanced up as he took his seat at the petitioner's table. Upstairs, Adaora waited calmly in her lawyer's office. Barrister Ejiro laid out her own filings, a detailed counterclaim listing every property deed, bank statement, and project ledger she had amassed. When a court messenger delivered Tobe's petition, she reviewed it with cool efficiency, then signed her responses. "Let's make this quick," she told Ejiro. He offered a supportive smile as they stood and headed down the hall together. Back in courtroom 14, Tobe rose to speak. His voice wavered. "Your Honor, I petition for dissolution on grounds of irreconcilable differences. I request equal division of marital assets." He looked toward Adaora, but she met his gaze with quiet composure. Ejiro then presented Adaora's assets. 7 Lagos buildings, 5 Enugu farms, 3 Abuja estates, all inherited and clearly documented. He laid out title deeds and notarized wills, demonstrating each transfer took place before their marriage. The judge examined the stack of documents, her eyes sharp. "Mr. Chukwuma," she said, "these properties are Ms. Iza's sole inheritance. They are not marital assets." A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. After a brief recess, the judge proclaimed her ruling. The divorce is granted on personal grounds. However, Ms. Iza's inheritance remains hers alone. The request to divide those assets equally is denied. Tobe closed his eyes, relief and shame mingling. Outside the courtroom, Adaora emerged first. Tobe waited beside the steps. He approached her hesitantly. I'm sorry, he whispered. I failed to see your truth. She took a steadying breath. This wasn't about winning, Tobe. It was about fairness and honesty. He bowed his head. Thank you for showing me that. Together they walked into the afternoon sun, divorced on paper, but united in respect and newfound understanding. When Tobe tried to access the suburban home he believed he owned, the gate refused to open. A security guard informed him quietly, Ms. E's holds sole title to this property. Stunned, Tobe phoned Barrister Ejiro. It's a dual title registration error, but Ms. E's name appears first, Ejiro explained. Legally, she retains exclusive rights. Later that day, Tobe found Adaora tending her jasmine garden on the residence's front lawn. The air smelled of soft blossoms. He approached, shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, he said. I thought I understood. Adaora brushed soil from her fingers. Titles matter, but nurturing does too, she replied, gesturing to the vibrant blooms. I planted this sapling with hope. Stewardship is the real proof of ownership. Over the next fortnight, Tobe arranged to vacate the house. He removed custom furniture and framed photos, each memory tucked away in boxes. Adaora's team coordinated with movers and offered gentle assistance. Each farewell felt bittersweet, a reclaiming of pride and release of past expectations. On his final morning, Tobe returned to lock the gate one last time. Adaora greeted him with 2 cups of warm lemon-scented tea. They sipped quietly beneath the rising sun. Thank you, Tobe murmured, for your fairness and generosity. Adaora smiled softly. This house belongs to me by law, but our shared memories belong to us both. He nodded, tears glinting. As Tobe drove away, the gates swung closed with a gentle click, marking an ending and the respectful boundaries of a new beginning. The grand hall buzzed as Adaora took the stage to accept the Outstanding Urban Empowerment Award. Crystal chandeliers gleamed above rows of dignitaries, journalists, and city leaders. Barrister Ejiro beamed from the front row beside Tobe and Chioma. Adaora's speech was measured and heartfelt. My grandmother entrusted me with a legacy of hope, she began. Today I stand not for myself, but for every family whose life has been transformed by affordable housing, microloans, and community programs. She paused as applause rippled through the audience. To my husband, whose belief sustained me, and to my sister-in-law, whose doubts ignited my resolve, thank you. Cameras flashed as she accepted the silver statuette. Afterward, journalists crowded around. Adaora spoke candidly about her next initiatives: vocational training for young women, sustainable agriculture on her farmlands, and a scholarship fund in her grandmother's name. Service is our true inheritance, she said, voice unwavering. In the VIP lounge, guests toasted with champagne. A mellow jazz quartet provided a soft backdrop. Tobe wrapped an arm around Adaora. You shone tonight, he whispered. Chioma dabbed at tears. I'm proud of you, she admitted. A budding architect approached, eyes bright. Your vision changed my entire approach to development, he said. Adaora promised to involve him in forthcoming projects. Later, Adaora slipped onto a balcony overlooking the city skyline. Lights twinkled like distant fireflies. Clutching her award, she whispered into the night, This is for you, Grandma. Behind her, the city pulsed with possibility, a testament to quiet strength and purposeful action. 3 years after their wedding, Tobe asked Adaora to meet at the old church courtyard where they first exchanged vows. She arrived, sun setting behind her, the rustle of jacaranda petals underfoot. Tobe looked older, lines of worry softened by sincerity. He held a small velvet box containing a simple pendant. I've rebuilt my life with honesty, he said, voice soft. I want to offer you a fresh start, no secrets, no assumptions. Adaora studied him. Memories of past pain and hard-won trust flickered through her mind. She opened the box to reveal the pendant, a delicate gold amethyst, symbolizing wisdom and peace. Tears brimmed as she placed it around her neck. I see your growth, Tobe. I see your heart, she whispered. I accept this gift. He smiled, relief flooding his features. They embraced beneath blooming trees, the present moment fragile yet hopeful. As night fell, they walked hand in hand toward a quiet future. One shaped by transparency and mutual respect, their love now rooted in truth. Adaora returned to her grandmother's renovated estate, a serene villa nestled between mango trees and bougainvillea vines. Inside, every room bore Mama Ezen's framed photographs and mementos, a hand-woven fan, a handwritten letter, a well-worn Bible. She held the final deed in her hand, the one that reaffirmed her sole ownership. Beside her, Young families moved into newly built homes on the property's grounds. Children darted through gardens. Women carried groceries into cheerful kitchens. Barrister Ejiro arrived with a congratulatory letter from the governor, praising her inspirational leadership. Tobe joined them, arms laden with refreshments for the welcoming ceremony. Chioma directed volunteers serving zobo and pastries. Adaora surveyed the scene, laughter, gratitude, blossoming hope. She whispered to her grandmother's portrait, "We did it, Grandma. Your silent strength flows through every stone and every smile." Then she turned to the families awaiting her blessing, stepping forward as both heiress and humble servant, the true embodiment of her grandmother's quiet power. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.